All right, looks like the recording has started. So hello, my name is Brian Miller. I am the Director of Strategic Education Outreach at Wonder Workshop, created by creators of Dash, Dot, and Q robots, and we are the sponsors of today's webinar. And I have with me Shireen Hafiz, founder of Deaf Kids Code, and Lynn Dunn, the STEM Outreach Coordinator for the NRS Center in Alabama, where she's working out of. And then we have Andy, who is our sign language interpreter. We're going to learn about those folks in a second, but you are joining us today for using robotics and computer science as a tool for English and ASL literacy development. And we're really excited to be doing this through the EdWeb platform. We have some great things that will be happening that we'll share that EdWeb is currently working on to make sure that they are accommodating all learners and all educators from across the globe. Also, be sure to join our community on EdWeb, Coding and Robotics K-8. There are many benefits to joining the EdWeb communities, and some of those benefits include watching all of the EdWeb webinar recordings, so you have full access to all of the recordings. We sponsor recordings with Wonder Workshop at least once a month, so you can go through and watch almost 2 years worth of content alone, just that we've been able to sponsor and bring some programs to you. You can earn CE certificates, you can download slides and chat logs, you can join the online discussion forum, and there's plenty of free resources to get started. So to join the community archives, make sure you look for those 3 little people with green hair. You click on that image for the Ed webinar recordings, slides, chat logs, and all of the resources. So a little bit about myself, so you know who's doing the hosting here, and I'm going to be the one that's guiding the conversations. I spent the last 15 years as an educator. I am the Director of Strategic Education Outreach at Wonder Workshop. I've held roles previously as a teacher and administrator in private and public education for K-12 schools, and also taught adjunct in higher education. And I've had the opportunity to travel the world working with schools and districts on integrating and implementing computer science, STEM, robotics into their K-12 computer science framework. I've had the opportunity to keynote major conferences and present, and I'm very, very, very active and involved on social media. So be sure to follow me at EdTechNerd, where we can continue to collaborate and have further conversation. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce today as well 2 incredible educators that are paving the way for the deaf education community. First, we have Shireen Hafiz. She's the founder of Deaf Kids Code. Her roots are in deaf causes, go back to the diagnosis of her own son. She founded the National Outreach nonprofit organization on the basis that the digital age is the great equalizer. Their mission at Deaf Kids Code is to promote design thinking, technology, and computer science skills as a way to bridge the opportunity gap. And you want to be sure to follow her on Twitter and the organization at Deaf Kids Code. So thank you, Shireen, for joining us today. Is there anything that you'd like to say?
Well, I'm grateful to have your support, Brian, and the North Regional STEM Center, Lynn, which you haven't introduced just yet, and to have Andy Rourke here, a fabulous ASL interpreter, and Coda. No, I'm just excited to use this platform to expand our students' abilities towards self-determination. So this is a human rights issue for me more than anything else. So thank you, Brian.
Absolutely. And the second person I would like to introduce is Lynn Dunn. And having been in the educational field for over 30 years, Lynn has worn many hats, from classroom teacher, language specialist, curriculum coordinator, counselor, and outreach provider in the areas of English and literacy in the relation to STEM education. Lynn has taught deaf, hard of hearing students from the kindergarten level through college level in areas of life skills, independent living skills, social studies, English, and reading. In her latest role as STEM Outreach Coordinator, she's been involved in workshops and trainings involving universal design for learning, the outdoor classroom, and NSTA workshops related to including STEM across the curriculum, as well as presenting on the regional and national levels of teaching English, writing skills to deaf, hard of hearing, ACT prep, and incorporating STEM and NGSS across all subject areas. So be sure to follow Lynn's organization on Twitter at NRS Center. So Lynn, is there anything that you'd like to add and share about yourself?
I would just like to say I am thrilled to be here. I work with the NRIC STEM Center, which we are federally funded, so all our services are free. So if you want any of my trainings, just go to my email and contact me. We serve 12 states that are free in the Southeast, but we do have VEX Robotics and other national programs that are free as well to all of the states. So if you would like any of our free services, please contact me and I can get you set up. We give you free robots and lots of free things. So send me an email. Also, I'd like to say this is the first, I've been in Deaf Ed really, I found out, counted the years, it's 40 years. And this has been the first time ever that deaf, hard of hearing students have been on the cutting edge of an educational trend. Usually by the time the deaf get involved, the pendulum is swung to something else. So we thank you, Brian, for including us. We are thrilled to be a part of it. Shireen, our contact with you. The dash with English and literacy, it makes a whole new ball game for deaf kids in the English classroom because it's usually their least favorite activity. Now they can learn the programming and other STEM skills and do English at the same time. I'm just thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. We're excited to be here. So the format of today's day and conversation is around a trip that Shireen and I had taken to visit the Alabama Institute for the Deaf and the Blind. So I'm going to switch over because this is the first time that we're doing something like this on EdWeb, where we are going to be playing a condensed version of our, what was it, almost 6 hours of working with students there, Shireen, that day. Is that correct?
Yes, it was a full day of programming at the Alabama Institute for the Deaf and Blind. And, we worked with, I believe it was two sets. No, we worked with the same set of students.
Two different sets.
We did. Okay. Gosh, so much has happened since then. My apologies. Sorry. And what I loved about it, what I always visualized, this is actually a dream of mine coming true because, my organization does free programming all over the country. And, and the whole motto is zero barrier to access. But the magic of all of this is about how we can harness technology as a new vehicle towards honing skills, traditional skills. So literacy is just one of like many, many other aspects that, we could take out of its silo and integrate it in approaching learning in a whole new way. And so, the video is showing how normally I explain to our students, what is computer science? What is technology? Not just about using apps and text messaging, but what is its impact on our world? How can you be a part of it? How can you be an active contributor to the digital age? And I will say this, that our children are born into the digital age. They perhaps are probably more tech savvy than all of us. So harnessing this should not be considered revolutionary. This is something that is already second nature to them. This is actually a culture that they understand, which is the culture of technology. It is the institutions that have yet to catch up to speed with where the world our children are already in. So the whole idea about, exploring new approaches and how, these can be integrated in literacy and, English literacy development, as well as, if you have, deaf institutions that are, ASL focused, this can also be used, for developing those skills as well. It can be two things. It can be English literacy and ASL development. It's really up to the imagination of the educator. Lynn and I, we worked for 2 days, creating templates of, baseline, basic, curriculum that, that we'll hopefully be able to share in the near future. But what we were hoping was that other educators can have these aha moments where they're like, oh, I use this technique with my students to teach, XYZ. And, and hoping that this can be a movement of how digitizing and integrating technology, and particularly the Dash robots, because it's a fun, engaging, interactive way. One thing for sure, your students will be fully involved. They will not be bored. And, this is going to be something that will keep the enthusiasm going.
So, a little bit about what's going on screen, and just so people aren't confused, we do have the audio off of this webinar because basically what's happening is we have gone through the day while we were here and instructing these students on how to use these robots for the very first time. We're in a room that is designed for STEM. It's a makerspace robotics room. So we did have a great space to be able to do this. But Shireen, can you tell me a little bit about how you are explaining this to students? Are you changing the way that you are speaking to them, or are you speaking to them as if you were talking to a regular classroom of students? Are you adapting your instructional style?
Yes. So my instructional style has always been deaf focused. So it's impossible for me to tell you what it would be like to teach non-deaf students, because I've never done it, because my background is not education, nor am I a technologist by education. So so maybe that has been my virtue, is that I've not been indoctrinated by either or. But so everything is visual. So what I did was I synced, the iPad to the smartboard, and the students get to see how the basic functions work. How do you create an algorithm? How do you create a command sequence? And so what you're seeing in real time right now are the different blocks and their functions and how the robot responds to them. Very simple. So even if I wasn't talking and it was just silence and they just watched and observed, they would still be able to understand, which, basically is the universal design process, right? It's like you want to be able to present information in the least barrier to access way. And so this is the style format.
So, Lynn, you've been involved in this space for quite some time now, and I'm kind of curious as to your thoughts on how educators may think that they need to adapt their teaching style, to accommodate, ASL students or hard of hearing students or deaf students. So what does that look like for you as the educator that has been doing this for some time, when working and teaching teachers how to teach with working with these types of students?
Well, the Dash robot is very easy to manipulate. And I'm not a tech person. I'm definitely the English Lit person on the STEM team. But working with Shireen, you also to incorporate the English Lit, one of the activities you'll see later is for students to do nouns and verbs, but correlating the nouns and verbs that they see on the screen. The vocabulary that they see on the screen with Shireen right now, we can also do a game with Dash that teaches that and reinforces that vocabulary. So they're learning vocabulary with this cute little robot. And so to the students, it doesn't seem like vocabulary learning, it's just fun. It's also called a little bit of incidental learning with the words and the screen. And they pick up a lot by the way she presents it on the screen. It's like she said, they can get a lot of information even if they didn't have an interpreter.
Yeah, I think the whole group instructional aspect of this is extremely important, especially when beginning with students for the very first time, because we don't want students who have never interacted with this before to be lost or confused when starting. Not that these robots are difficult by any means to do that. I think these robots are designed so when you take them out of the box and you turn it on for the very first time, it's extremely welcoming and easy to understand. but for making sure students are all on the same page and going through some of the different functions for the very first time, we decided to model the whole group instruction for that reason. And one of the things that you immediately see here is, the students' attention, their engagement, and it's very different because, they're watching Shireen and on screen how she's actually using the robots and programming while watching the sign language interpreter as well too. So they are able to easily, watch and manage both the presenter and the signer as well. So for teachers that may be a little bit standoffish, these students naturally have adapted to this world of being able to integrate and understand how to take multiple inputs in when sound is not one of those inputs, because it's all visual. So doing this on screen whole group has worked really nicely with this particular group of students, because they are able to follow along and also visually see in a physical device what's happening. So Shireen, I know you've worked with lots of different tools and products. And when we first connected at the CS for All conference in Detroit this past year, you mentioned to me that this was one of those products that was like the thing that excited you, the most, and knew that right away this was something that you'd be able to incorporate with, students that are deaf or hard of hearing. So, what is it about them that has, captured your attention, but also captured the students' attention as well?
I'll give a quick summary. So I started this organization about 5 years ago. Your company, the Make Wonder company, was very new at that time. And it had come through some social media newsfeed or something. And I contacted your company. And I said that, I would love to try these out. I want to check these out. And your company actually sent me 2 robots for free. You sent it to me. And, everybody in this space is fully aware that the edtech space is quite crowded. We have no shortage of companies trying to accomplish, similar goals. But nothing has compared to the user experience that these robots have. And it's very important that I put out to the universe that my organization's value is not for sale. So we do not, take money. We do not push out products because we have some selfish incentives. That is one of our values. So this is not anything that Deaf Kids Code is being financially compensated, any such thing. I was the one that reached out to Brian because of the magic of this tool, and how versatile its capabilities are. And that's why we're doing this. So that's really important that I wanted to say that, because nothing has been able to compare. I have kids that will say that, they feel connected to these robots, that it's like a form of expression for them. And, the level of mastery and things, imagine if they had even more time to take it further. This is a very English literacy focused webinar, but imagine, how this can be used for math skills, computational skills, which, by the way, they already are using in this process, but that's another webinar. but what you're killing, what's the term? 2 birds with one stone. Yeah. So that's the idea.
I did notice that we have a kindergarten preschool teacher, at least 2 or 3. I would like to say these robots are good for teaching color words, because you have to code you can color their codes different colors. For their purple, they can blink a certain number of times. You could show the word color, and you'll see later how we set up a track to go to certain places, but you could start this as low as color words.
Yes.
And number words. I mean, And if
Yes.
you're doing sign language, you could have the signs, them go into the different signs for different words. I mean, you can start it
Yes.
as early as kindergarten.
That is a brilliant point, Lynn. So each of the blocks, which I don't know if, Brian, we even have a close up of like what that, so what this is, so the kids that you see right now are using the Blockly app. The Blockly app has a line of menu options. And under those menu options, you click, and then you have a new set of additional options. All of these are words. And all of these words tie into literacy. So Lynn was saying about, I think that the color blocks are under lights. So say that you are teaching your kindergartners, okay, find the word, what's the word that's lights, so they can look through it. Okay, now, what color? Okay, now why don't you search for blue? So then they have to find blue. So that also like reinforces ASL understanding, English literacy. Exactly. And you could even, if you want to be even more magical, you could even integrate math. Say, I want the blue light to blink 5 times.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The possibilities are endless. And this is something that, believe me, the children will be so connected to the robot that they'll be so enthusiastic and curious about doing it, that it's going to take like very little effort on your part to engage them.
Someone brought it up earlier and they mentioned, the buzzword that we all use in education, differentiated instruction. I mean, that's what we are doing here with students. And for students that are in your classroom and they may be working in an on-screen format and they want to be a little bit more physical in what they're doing to retain this information, that's where bringing a robot comes in to do off-screen programming, whether it's our robot or another robot. It's a great way to keep the students engaged. So one of the engagement activities that we decided to do with the students, and is very typical inside of a classroom that's using robots for the very first time, is creating some sort of maze or track that they have to go through and solve. So there are many different things that you are learning throughout this entire process just by driving it around, and it's spatial awareness, distance, and measurement. But there's some really magical things that happen when we cut to some of the closer up footage where, yes, these students are each working with their own device, but the amount of collaboration that you will see start to occur is very impressive. And that's one of the exciting pieces about getting them off of a screen that they're laser focused onto and putting them into a physical environment where they can see and touch and move and manipulate the different objects. Now, what we're moving over to here in this case, as we push them through and we demonstrate and instruct the activities first before we break them out into groups, is in fact this literacy activity that involves nouns, adjectives, and verbs. So Lynn, do you mind sharing a little bit about this? It's going to cut a little bit closer in a minute, but do you mind sharing a little bit about what this activity was and how we set this up?
No, I'd love to. I'm on the tech team, so I really didn't connect using literacy games with the robot, but this is perfect.
And it happened in the room, right? I mean, like these lights went off in your mind, like, oh my gosh, we can incorporate this. So yeah, keep going. I'm sorry.
So anyway, there's vocabulary on the table. Some are nouns and some are verbs and some are adjectives. I typed up a worksheet and it had nouns, verbs, adjectives. They could program the robot to go to a certain word. Then they had to decide if it was a noun, a verb, or an adjective, and then write that word under the correct heading on the paper. And I started thinking about different activities. Like another activity, there were some words I realized after I'd done it, there was a word that was a noun and a verb. And I thought, well, another activity could be the whole table of just nouns and verbs from vocabulary from the Dash robot, like roar, laugh, burp, dance, answer, program. Because now, like the word text, before it was just noun, now it's a noun and a verb. So you could do that activity on it. You could do your color words on the grid where you could show them a color and they'd have to match it to the word. I mean, there's a whole list of things you could do as far as ASL literacy. As you all know, some people call them idioms, some call them two-word verbs. like hold still, take pity on, have on. Those are all, they're 2 or 3 words in English, but they're only one sign in ASL. So that's another way that you could use this table to do like your 2-word idioms, your double verbs. And also your double verbs have multiple meanings, like makeup. That could be a lady's makeup, or either if you're mad at your boyfriend or girlfriend, you make up. So you could have those kind of words on the table, and they have to sign the 2 meanings of the multiple meanings of the words. Step down, pass out. The options are really endless of what you could do with this table. And
So
also you could also just have various words. And as far as collaboration, you could have nouns, verbs, adjectives. The students would have to work together to devise a sentence, and then write the sentence on a piece of paper, then program the robot to go around the grid to write the sentence. So that's another, as far as literacy and writing skills, you can incorporate that writing skill as well. As even preschool, just simple ones, simple sentences. And also the young lady, the teacher in the picture, said, oh my gosh, this is a great way to do vocabulary review. And for the vocab, they could land on the word, they could have to sign the word, sign the meaning. And then you could also have a worksheet with sentences, and they would have to decide which sentence fits with that vocabulary word, based teaching context clues in a sentence. I'm telling you.
Another great idea with that, Lynn, is, for vocabulary words, especially with using the lights, is having dash change to a different color, and based on the color equals that vocabulary word, right? So then they know to look at a table and say, okay, it turned blue. Blue equals this word. So now I have to be able to explain what that word is and sign it, right? So yes. A way to incorporate computer science and randomization into their programming. So what ages do you think that these activities could work with?
Oh, these activities could work from kindergarten, as I said, to your color words, to number words, and also on ASL, even with young deaf, hard of hearing, you could have one grid that had numbers 1 through 10, and the teacher could have them invent a number story using ASL. In ASL, they also have alphabet stories, so they could land on the letters A through L, and they would have to invent an ASL story based on those. Also, your classifiers, different hand shapes. They could land on a different hand shape in ASL and have to invent a story using that one hand shape. Those are some of your ASL possibilities. I mean, that can start preschool and with deaf and hard of hearing, go all the way up to high school. And the stories can just get more advanced.
Yeah, I think it's the opportunities are endless. And I think, one of the exciting things that I experienced while I was here, with the students and with you specifically, was, seeing that aha moment happen. And for me in my career, when I work with educators, that by far is, other than the aha moment that I received from students, getting it to happen to an educator, to me, is magical, because what this has done for you is unlocked a whole new idea way of teaching a skill set that is current and relevant to how students want to learn today. And these students picked up these devices immediately. They were excited. They had fun. We're going to see towards the end, the older students, just some of the interaction that they were even having with myself was amazing, because they knew that I worked for the company. They knew that I was involved with the robots, and they wanted to race me around the room, driving the robots. So, this is engaging to all levels of students. And the fact that, and I think a big misconception about this is that, because Dash and Dot are designed to teach early learners how to code, when students are older, they immediately think that it has no relevance to them, right? Because it's too simple. But what we have to remind ourselves of, especially when working in computer science, is that there may be high school students that have never experienced computer science or robotics before. So they have the same level of understanding as a kindergartner coming in and experiencing it for the first time maybe. Now, yes, they may know how to use a device a little bit better, but they still need to learn the foundations. And we notice that with the older students. Go ahead, Lynn.
As far as older students, one of my specialties is doing ACT training for deaf and hard of hearing. And there's certain things all students really need to memorize, like the verb to be, coordinating conjunctions. So another table grid thing, as far as taking it from preschool to high school, you could have the verb to be, your coordinating conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions, and you could tell them, okay, you've got to program the robot to hit all the subordinating conjunctions or all the coordinating conjunctions or the verb to be. I mean, you could use this to help reinforce ACT things students need to know in the ACT. So it goes from preschool to high school. You could use it for all different levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the things that people typically ask when we show students working in a gridded environment like this is, where do I don't have a table or a room set up like this. What do I do? So we were fortunate to go into a room that had an existing table that was designed for robotics that they purchased previously for another company. But what you can simply do in this case is you can literally just take painter's tape and grid out the floor that the students can work off of. You can buy a shower curtain and draw lines on the shower curtain if you want to make it a little bit more mobile to move around. I've also seen, people project things on the floor using a projector. They've pointed their projector down and created a gridded image. We at Wonder Workshop, we actually have a product called the Sketch Mat that has a pre-gridded space that you can work out of. So there's lots of different options. Just because you don't have this physical table doesn't mean you can't do this activity. We can get creative with how you, design your space around that. So Shireen, I mean, a big part of this was how students were interacting and engaging with each other. So what are some of the things when you were at the school you heard or saw the students signing and telling you about their level of engagement and involvement and, using this type of learning to, understand, English learning and ASL?
So this is what is always the most fascinating part of this, is that you don't see the students running after the teachers asking for help. This is what is always the most phenomenal part of this, is that it's not the students, it's actually the educators that know these kids well are the ones that say, wow, I mean, look at how engaged they are. Nobody's asking us for help. Nobody's asking for, any assistance. All you have to do is explain the task and they're on it. They've got what we always strive for, which is, what is the term? Agency. Yeah. I mean, this is agency, right? Because as long as you're curious and, you are, I mean, again, this is like second nature to them. So this is not a new phenomenon, for the world that they are in. And that is actually what it is that you can see, I mean, all this video footage was live in real time, and they're problem solving on their own. They're not giving up after the first try. They've got that grit. They've got that persistence, and it's from them. It's not from because we're telling them, no, keep trying. No, don't stop. No. I mean, yeah, we have kids that get frustrated, but they still don't want help. They still want to figure it out. And that is a beautiful, beautiful quality.
I saw one question. They asked, what size would the squares have to be if you were taping them off in your room?
Yeah, approximately a 5x5 space is what we recommend. So you don't need a massive space to be able to do all this that we've done. You can do it in other locations if you don't have that physical space in your classroom. You can do it in the hallway or in a gymnasium, or even take it outside. I mean, these robots will take a beating. We don't recommend putting them in sand, dirt, and water, but if you're doing it on asphalt or concrete or a sidewalk where the students chalk out, their grids, that works as well. So a minimum of at least a 5x5 space that they can move around in.
But I have also been in classrooms, because everywhere I go across the country, I never know what I'm going to get. I mean, we've used everyday objects in the class. We packed a tower of books as like one obstacle. We took some chairs here and there. Okay, it has to go through this chair, then it has to pass those books, and then it has to do, I mean, it's easy to, improvise. You can take basic printer paper and cut out arrows. My staple is the painter's tape. I use that everywhere I go. I always have an arsenal of that. But I mean, really, that is, you can use just everyday objects.
Absolutely. So now what we have here on screen is the next batch of students that we were working with, which were middle and lower high school students that came in. And Shireen did the same level of instruction at the beginning. So we didn't change our method of instruction because of the age. Because again, these are students that interacted with this for the very first time. They haven't used the robot. So we kept our level of instruction exactly the same. This just cut to them working because I didn't want to have them, re-showing Shireen teaching the same thing over again, but also having the students go in the engagement. And, there's the students that are talking or signing to each other or tapping each other on the shoulder and trying to get their attention and pointing at something as something's happening on the floor and getting up and moving around. It's really exciting to see this level of involvement and engagement. And I keep seeing the word engagement come through in the chat. And that's what we're trying to do, is keep students engaged in their learning. Now, one of the things that we also see here are some incredible educators in the room as well. So, Lynn, do you mind sharing a little bit of information about where we were, Alabama Institute for Deaf and the Blind, and some of the educators that were in the room with us?
Educators in the room, one was an elementary teacher, and then a high school. We had the art teacher come in when you did the activity with the markers, the drawings on the paper, drawing the squares and rectangles and so forth. And also the other members of the team are basically our team members. We have Harry, who's the head of the VEX Robotics, which is nationwide, which we can offer you some services free nationwide with the VEX Robotics. I'm the English Lit teacher, and we also have a math science teacher to coordinate technology and math and science, technology, English, and Lit. And these were some of the educators in the classroom with us. And again, our services are free for 12 states, and we do have some national programs. For if you're in our 12 state area, we do have some Dash robots that we can give you for your school or your program that you can start implementing these activities with. So again, my email is the best way to contact me. I'm not much of a Twitter person. I'm getting there though. But you contact my email, and a lot of these services are free, and we can go to your school for your VEX Robotic and train you. If Shireen and I can go, or I can go, or Harry or Jason, our mother, Jason's the one standing up there right now, that we can go and travel to your school to help train you in using the robots.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
And also, we are still working on some activities. And all you educators out there, I think this is just to motivate to get you going. Y'all's ideas are probably far better than what just two. But we came up with an activity like the track on the floor that you saw behind us with the painter's tape. We invented a story that the Dash wanted to go see his friend in the library. They had to pass the garden, and then they went through a tunnel and this. So you're working on prepositions. We said, okay, you had to find the setting, the main character, and it ended up in a short paragraph. And the robot was programmed to go through that. And also it included art, because you could draw the garden you could get a piece of paper and draw the garden. I mean, this is not, education. It's not a whole lot for money. I mean, these are just poster paper and crayons and markers. You can draw the garden. You can make the tunnel with paper blocks. Yeah. It's really endless what you can do. And also for preschool, I thought about, sometimes they have those carpets that have the road on them already printed. Like you could have vocabulary on the road that you have to program them to go to the certain vocabulary. It doesn't have to be an expensive or complicated thing, because the kids, the iPad, as you can see, they're totally engaged with the iPad and the robot. They just need some guidance on where to take the robot. And you can use that with English and math. I've seen a whole lot of things about using book reports, using it with algebra and coordinates. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah. And I'm telling you, teaching English and Lit, When they come to that class, it's not their favorite class, but when you're using these robots, they're doing it. You're reinforcing your English and your ASL skills and some reading skills, and they're having fun doing it. I mean, they didn't want to leave. When it was time to go,
I
they
know.
did not want to leave.
Yeah. They were so bummed out.
Yeah.
They really were. So Shireen, what is the best way you think for schools or teachers to get started with this? What resources does Deaf Kids Code provide them that they can get out there and begin?
Well, many times most schools, when I was, for the past several years, had never seen these robots, or you have educators that are very intimidated, that they're like, wait a minute, this is not my lane. One may be a fourth grade teacher, another one may be a librarian, another one could be, and so a lot of times they tend to be a little apprehensive, like, wait a minute, I'm not the STEM educator. And that's why this webinar is so important, because anybody can integrate this. Anybody can integrate this. And so part of my caveat, because we provide free programming, we bring all the equipment wherever we go. I travel with about 150 pounds of technology. And if any educators are on this chat, whose school I have been to, they know that I have my big Bertha suitcases that are just these little monsters. But anyways, so I bring the robots, I bring the iPads, I bring the glue guns, yada, yada. And that is their first dose, and I always encourage schools to have staff with me, in a non-intimidating, easy system where they can learn alongside the students. And that is usually the first introduction. And a lot of times, schools will be like, I want information about that, everything that you used. I want to, I want all the links and this and that. And, and so that, that tends to be, part of it. But now we're, upping the ante a little bit, since I was working with Lynn, and now we're actually creating some curriculum of everything that we're discussing right now, that everyone can have access to. So hopefully we'll be able to, put it in a format that is open source, so that anybody from anywhere has the ability to just print it out and access it, and hopefully get inspiration from that baseline curriculum, and maybe even take it up many notches. Like Lynn said, nobody knows your students better than you. And so all of these things can be, reimagined, which we welcome that, because then maybe you can share that feedback with us and with other educators across the world, and how they can benefit from, real world knowledge. See, when we were putting this together, I insisted that we do it in a real world classroom setting. So there were two things that were new. One was I wanted real life situational teaching examples, which you see in the footage. And then the second thing is I wanted, an interpreter. Those were my two. And we will have captioning, but that will be available after 1 week of this recording. Someone had popped up a question about how long are our workshops. So the minimum I request is to have no less than 4 hours with any particular group of students. But particularly if I'm flying, over to your school, I really would love to spend a day, with your middle schoolers or high schoolers, especially those students that are at a crossroads of making very important transition decisions. I like to ignite their fire. And so I need time to do that. And I need to expose them to, our ecosystem of software and hardware and all of that. and Dash is always a staple within that. So that kind of is a way of, you educators kind of dabbling and getting a feel for it without being committed to purchasing or, or taking it on. So that's just food for thought.
Yeah, that's great. And like Shireen said, please utilize her and her organization for her resources and her knowledge. I think a big thing that she said that resonates with me specifically as well too is, spending time with the students when we go and visit schools, right? Because we want to be impacting our end user, and in this case, it is the students. So being able to, even for myself, when I have meetings or I have to go and visit schools, I always ask to spend some time visiting with students to talk with them or to show them some new things or to be a guest speaker and, share the things that I've experienced in my career through computer science and technology, and getting to show off, cool toys like Dash and Dot. And I use toys in an endearing term. This is really an instructional tool for learning in this case. And we're kind of tricking students into learning because they're having fun and engaged. But working with students is so important, but also working with those educators as well too. And, I think Lynn mentioned it also that there are apprehensive teachers that are out there into incorporating technology into what they're doing, especially when it comes to computer science, because it's another thing that we have to add into what we're doing. They may not have the level of comfortability to do it. They don't want to be the person that is not the smartest person in the classroom because they're the teacher. They want to have everything, an answer to everything. And really what this is for an educator now is a mindset change and being able to pass off that control to the students. And what we saw, and I mean, even with this group of students, there's the one girl with like the reddish hair that's leaning down right now. I gave them the challenge of one of the drawings here, and I was going through and showing them some of the different challenge cards that they were able to try to draw using the sketch kit. And I said, we start off easy and then we go really hard, and it goes all the way up to drawing a house. And the first thing that she did was like, she clapped and she just pointed and she said that she wanted to do that one because she felt like she would be able to take control and do that. And there's a clip in a couple of minutes in here as well, where she actually does draw the house. And so the students are super comfortable with it, and being able to get them to see and getting the educators in the room to see that, hey, they haven't done this themselves, that this is easy enough for students to be able to pick up and do on their own, and empower them and let the students work with other students in solving their problems. In a moment, you'll see the students break out into their activities. Right now, we've actually swapped out this table for a math activity. So we've just changed all of those specific cards, and now we've changed them into numbers. And what they had to do was they had totals that they had to add up to. So, we can say, 9 times 6 is 54. So they had the total of 54. They had to drive to the 9. Then they had to go from the 9 and drive to the 6 to be able to say 9 times 6 equals 54. So being able to, just simply swap out some cards and make them addition activities, subtraction activities, just changing the operation allows them to have a whole bunch of different ways to incorporate math. So they were going through and they had a worksheet with different totals on here. But you'll see when they break out that students are talking to other students, signing to them and having conversations between each other and helping them understand, hey, try this or move the robot over here. The level of engagement for me between students is always the magical part, and the piece that teachers don't think about happens when they're working with a device. So again, I just want to reiterate that piece of it is so important. Is there anything you wanted to add here, either of you, about what we were doing in these activities with the older students?
I was going to add what you said about teachers, is if we don't have enough to do, they'll tell an English teacher, okay, now you have to include STEM with your English and Lit. And they go, what? Well, an easy activity is like, even with the 3 little pigs, if you have the kids build a house out of straws, popsicle sticks, and maybe blocks, and then see why they don't fall down. But then you could have like a little community, and the Dash robot can go around. You can program to go see this little pig and that little pig, and then decide why it doesn't low down, and that's engineering. That's your STEM engineering right there, as well as doing the story with the literacy. And I had a question. She said she missed the carpet idea. That is, you can go to Walmart and other places, and there's this carpet with like a road or a house or different images on the carpet, and you could devise, have adjectives or verbs or somewhere where you could devise where to go within the community. So you really wouldn't have to make anything except where you wanted the robot to go, which if it was going to be English or math or whatever activity. And again, it's also for high school, because when Shireen does a Deaf Kids Code, you invent something and then you have to market it, right? That's a higher level activity there. And I do a presentation with STEM and literacy, and like when Katrina, there was a book about Katrina. Well, the activity would be you have to design a levee. You have to design a levee that would withstand hurricanes, or a geographical area. You have to build houses or structures. If it's California, it's earthquakes. If it's Oklahoma, it's tornadoes. But there are all sorts of things you can do as far as high school with the STEM as well.
Thank you for sharing this. So we're going to take a moment here, and we're going to go through and we're going to answer some of these questions that we have that have popped into here. I'm showing 2 right now. So if there's any that you want to continue to add, you can directly through hitting the question mark. The first question is, can you develop a set of 3 strategies to use these resources in a school that has economic deprivation? So Shireen, I think you briefly touched about having some resources that are available for students, and then Lynn, you as well. So do you want to just share that a little bit further?
So if we're talking about, this is one aspect, right? It's like on top of the fact that a lot of our schools have outdated technology. So I very often have gone to schools that would be like, no, I have iPads. But then you realize that they're like first generation iPads that do not have the, Bluetooth 4.0 technology, LTE technology that the Dash robots need in order to, be able to function. There are grants that you can tap into. The North Regional STEM Center, which is Lynn's center, they are a wealth of resources. And they are like, sort of like a branch arm for NTID, the National Technical Institute for the Deaf, which are, very heavily STEM focused. And so I would say that, that if maybe the ecosystem would be that, you get into establishing a VEX Robotics Club, which, the North Regional STEM Center can help establish in your school. Secondly would be, that my organization can come and host a workshop, and, you get to try it out. And then, you can make the case to these other institutions and say, hey, we really want to indoctrinate this technology into our school. I think that, that our population is small enough that, that we should be able to, harness resources. Lynn, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, we are federally funded, and we cover 12 states, the Southeast, North Carolina, South Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida, Oklahoma, Texas. If you're in any of those 12 states, our services are free. And we do have some Dash and Dot robots and iPads that we will provide you for free to take to your students. Also, we're developing a STEM mobile, which is a charter bus, which will have, when you go in the bus, it's going to have your computers, your TV screens, a whole plethora of things on the bus that we can travel to you and to your school to provide like a STEM day there. But some of the Dash and Dot robots we can provide, and like as far as providing the activities, as we say, y'all, sometimes all you need is paper and pencil. Shireen, did you have?
I was just noticing that the individual that had posted that question was from Mali. Maule. Where's that?
I'm not sure. Maybe they can post in the chat room and they can tell us.
Okay, because
I have one more question, so I'm going to post this up on the screen as well. But they're asking, they're an instructional technology coach. They've had the privilege of working with students in the Center of Basic Deaf and Hard of Hearing. They've been using some other applications like Doink and Green Screen for ASL presentations. They want to know are there any resources for interpreters to gain access to computer science terminology? They've seen Apple develop an ASL program, but as a teacher who relies on sign language interpreters to communicate with our students. And I know that we actually had the privilege of, working with Andy today, and then we had a great ASL interpreter who was focused on STEM when we were at Alabama Institute for Deaf and the Blind. So, Lynn, do you have any suggestions?
Well, as it happens, we also provide a Gen Cyber Camp free for deaf and hard of hearing students, and Drones and Droids Camp and a Marine Biology Camp for free for those students in the 12 states. We have developed a video of computer signs that correlate with the Gen Cyber technology. And that video will probably be available in December for interpreters. They will just be able to access it for free once we have finished it, but it'll have vocabulary specifically geared to cybersecurity and Gen Cyber vocabulary. So we are working on those two videos now. And then there are NTID, the interpreter was from NTID. They are also working on vocabulary related to STEM related and computer science vocabulary. So you can contact NTID, National Technical Institute for the Deaf, as well, because they have started a process, as well as the Learning Center for Deaf, in Framingham, Mass.
Yes, ASL Clear.
ASL Clear.
ASL Clear.
They have started signs for computer science and technology as well. So you have three resources there. ASL Clear in Framingham, NTID, and the other one is from the University of Alabama in Huntsville that we are working with. So we're trying to get there. But those are some avenues that are here now.
I would also add, sorry, Brian, very quickly. And we have our Khan Academy project that will be underway very soon. So we will be, we have teamed up with NTID and Khan Academy to make Khan Academy ASL accessible. So hang on to your hats, people.
Okay, I have a quick question from Wisconsin.
Go.
Is there an organization in the Midwest that it's totally free? I mean, in Wisconsin, not yet, but our VEX Robotics is national. So we can set you up with a VEX Robotic team and IQ team for your middle school and high school. We can do that for free.
Great.
So.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and we're at the 6 o'clock mark. So I just want to go ahead and I, again, want to thank Shireen Hafiz, founder of Deaf Kids Code, and Lynn Dunn, the STEM outreach coordinator for NRSC. Time flies by when you're having fun and chatting and sharing all of this. Here's their contact information. So if you have any questions, you can email myself at brian@makewonder.com. You can email Shireen and the organization at contact@deafkidscode.org. And you can contact Lynn for the wealth of her knowledge and some more questions that I keep rolling through here. I'm sure you're going to be inundated with lots of emails, Lynn. Dunn.lynn@aidb.org. You can also follow us and post us messages right on social media. Here is information that you can check out these organizations as well too. So this is clickable. So when you watch the video back, you can literally click onto the video and you'll be able to access those slides, or I'm sorry, those websites. And if you have any questions about bringing Wonder Workshop robots to your school, you can reach out to myself and my team directly. So I manage the entire outreach team for Wonder Workshop. Our job is to go in and work with schools and districts throughout the country, incorporating computer science into what they're doing. So if you have questions, I have a team of educators along with myself that work in that specific area, and we can help you with that. So if you're located in the West Coast or the Southeast and international, for those international friends that have joined, you can email me. Otherwise, if you're located in the central United States, you can email Katrina. And if you're located in the Northeast, you can email Jeff. or you can email me directly and I can point you in the right direction. But we are here and ready to answer any questions that you may have, in helping you decide what it is that you may need to be successful in what you're doing in your schools. And again, just want to thank you for attending the EdWeb webinar for this week. Be sure to give us feedback at the tinyurl.com/edwebinareval on what has gone on today. And again, please feel free to join our coding and robotics community for more information. It's free. Don't forget that. You're given access to all the upcoming opportunities on EdWeb, as well as all the previous recordings. And something that's really exciting to share and announce is that EdWeb has been working and transcribing all of their EdWeb webinars from 2019 up until current, and any EdWeb webinar that is happening from here on out will have transcription services applied as well to make sure that we can accommodate every single learner that's involved. So again, I want to thank Lynn and Shireen and Andy for signing for us today, and just hope I hope you had a great session. Hope there were things that you were able to take away and learn, and we hope that you reach out to us with any questions or things that you may need. So again, thank you, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.